You're sitting at home one evening. Your phone buzzes with a message from someone you deeply love. Your heart drops as you read it. The words seem innocent enough on the surface, but underneath, you feel that familiar twist in your stomach, that subtle guilt, that nagging anxiety, that voice in your head saying, if I don't respond the right way, there will be consequences. And in that moment, you realize you're caught, once again, in the intricate web of emotional manipulation. I see the recognition in your eyes. That's sliding out of your head. Because every single one of us, whether it's with a parent who knows exactly which emotional buttons to push, a partner who uses love as a bargaining chip, or a sibling who's mastered the art of making us feel responsible for their happiness. We've all experienced the profound impact of emotional manipulation by those closest to our hearts. But here's what makes this particularly challenging. These aren't strangers we can simply walk away from. These are people we love deeply. People who are woven into the fabric of our lives. People who, despite their manipulative behaviors, we want to keep in our lives. And that's what makes this journey we're about to embark on together, both essential and delicate. Today, we're going to dive deep into understanding not just what emotional manipulation looks like when it comes from those we love, but more importantly, how to break free from its grip while maintaining our compassion both for ourselves and for those who manipulate us. Because the truth is, hurt people. And understanding this is the first step toward true transformation. Let's begin with a fundamental truth that might feel uncomfortable. Love shouldn't hurt. Yes, relationships have their ups and downs. Yes, conflicts are normal. But when love becomes a weapon, when it's used to control, to guilt, to shame, that's fear wearing love's mask. Think about the last time you felt manipulated by someone you love. Maybe it was subtle, a sigh, a look, a carefully worded phrase that made you question your own judgment. Or perhaps it was more overt. Threats of withdrawal, silent treatment, or emotional outbursts that left you walking on eggshells. Whatever form it took, I want you to hold that memory gently in your mind as we explore this together. Because here's what nobody tells you about emotional manipulants, like it's not always malicious. Sometimes the people who manipulate us are simply repeating patterns they learned in their own lives. They're operating from their own wounds, their own fears, their own unmet needs. This understanding doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps us approach the situation with compassion instead of contempt. Let me share something profound with you. The moment you start recognizing the patterns of manipulation in your relationships is the moment you begin to reclaim your power. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, the guilt trips, the passive-aggressive comments, the subtle ways your emotions are being used against you, they all become visible. But recognition is just the first step. The real transformation begins when we understand why we've allowed these patterns to persist in our lives. Often, it's because we've confused love with obligation. We've mixed up self-sacrifice with self-worth. We've convinced ourselves that maintaining peace at any cost is better than standing in our truth. Every time you give in to emotional manipulation, you're not just affecting your present moment, you're setting a precedent for your future. You're telling both yourself and the other person that your boundaries are negotiable, that your emotional well-being is less important than keeping them happy. But here's where it gets interesting. The strongest boundaries often come wrapped in the gentlest compassion. When we understand that setting boundaries isn't about punishing the other person, but about honoring ourselves, everything changes. We can begin to say no with love. We can stand firm in our truth while still holding space for the other person's pain. This journey we're on isn't about villainizing those who manipulate us. It's about understanding the dynamic deeply enough to transform it. It's about recognizing that when someone tries to control us emotionally, they're often coming from a place of deep insecurity and fear themselves. Think about water for a moment. When it meets an obstacle, it doesn't fight. It flows. It finds new paths. It adapts without losing its essential nature. That's what we're learning to do here. We're not cutting people out of our lives unnecessarily. We're learning to flow differently around the obstacles they present. As we continue this exploration together, I want you to hold on to this truth. Your worth is not measured by how much you can endure. Your love is not proven by how much you can sacrifice. Your value is not determined by how well you can keep others happy at the expense of your own well-being. The path we're walking together is one of profound transformation. It's about learning to love others without losing ourselves. It's about understanding that true love, healthy love, uplifts, empowers, and respects. It doesn't manipulate, guilt, or shame. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore specific strategies for recognizing and responding to emotional manipulation while maintaining our connections with those we love. Because this isn't just about survival, it's about thriving. It's about creating relationships that honor both parties' emotional well-being. Remember, the goal isn't to become impervious to the emotions of others. The goal is to become so grounded in our own truth that manipulation loses its power over us. To become so clear in our understanding of healthy love that we can spot its counterfeit versions immediately. As we pause here, I want you to take a deep breath. Feel the weight of recognition, of understanding washing over you. Because naming something, truly seeing it for what it is the first step toward transforming it. And that's exactly what we're doing here together. Now, let's delve deeper into the subtle ways emotional manipulation manifests in our closest relationships. Because awareness, true deep awareness, is our first line of defense against manipulation's corrosive effects. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful forms of manipulation often come disguised as love? It's the parent who says, after all I've done for you, the partner who claims, if you really love me, you would, the sibling who reminds you, family always comes first, no matter what. These phrases sound like expressions of love and commitment, but they're actually emotional tripwires designed to trigger our deepest insecurities. Let's shine a light on some of the most common patterns. First, there's what I call the love withdrawal technique. This is when someone withholds affection, attention, or approval unless you behave exactly as they wish. It's particularly powerful because it plays on our fundamental fear of abandonment. The silent treatment, the cold shoulder, the subtle withdrawal of warmth. These are all weapons in the manipulator's arsenal. Then there's the guilt amplification strategy. This is when your loved one takes your normal, healthy choices and frames them as personal betrayals. How could you choose to spend time with your friends when you know I'm lonely? I guess your career is more important than your family. These statements are designed to make you question your right to have boundaries, to have a life outside of their needs. Once you start recognizing these patterns, you begin to see them everywhere. And that recognition, that's power, because you can't address what you can't identify. Think about this. Every time someone makes you feel guilty for taking care of yourself, they're essentially saying their needs should override your well-being. Every time someone punishes you with silence for setting a boundary, they're trying to train you to prioritize their comfort over your growth. But here's where we need to pause and remember something crucial. The people who manipulate us aren't usually cackling villains, twirling their mustaches. They're often wounded souls who learn these behaviors as survival strategies. They're people who never learned healthy ways to express their needs or handle their fears. This understanding is crucial because it helps us respond with wisdom rather than reaction. When we see the fear behind the manipulation, we can address the real issue rather than getting caught in the surface drama. Let me share a powerful truth with you. Your emotional well-being is not negotiable. It's not something you put on the bargaining table, even for those you love most deeply, because here's the paradox. The more you honor your own emotional health, the more genuinely you can show up for others. Think of it like an oxygen mask on an airplane. You have to secure your own before helping others. This isn't selfish. It's essential. When you maintain healthy boundaries, when you refuse to be manipulated, you're not just helping yourself. You're actually showing others a better way to relate. But how do we maintain these boundaries without burning bridges? How do we stand firm in our truth while keeping our hearts open? This is where the art of compassionate firmness comes in. Instead of saying, "Stop manipulating me," which often leads to denial and defensiveness, we can say, "I care about you and I also need to take care of myself." Instead of getting caught in arguments about who's right or wrong, we can simply state, "This is what I need to be healthy in this relationship." You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to pick up every guilt trip that's laid at your feet. You can acknowledge someone's feelings without taking responsibility for them. When someone says, "You're being selfish," you can respond with, "I understand you see it that way, and I need to make choices that honor both of us." When someone tries to guilt you with past sacrifices, you can acknowledge their contributions while maintaining your boundaries. "I'm grateful for all you've done, and I need to make this choice for my well-being." This is where real transformation begins, in these small moments of choosing different responses. It's about breaking the old patterns of automatic compliance and replacing them with conscious, loving choices. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. There will be resistance. There will be pushback. The people who are used to manipulating you will not immediately celebrate your newfound strength. They might even intensify their efforts when they sense they're losing their emotion. This is why we need to cultivate inner strengths. This is why we need to be absolutely clear about our right to have boundaries, our right to say no, our right to prioritize our well-being, because when the storms of manipulation come, and they will come, it's this inner clarity that will keep us steady. Think of yourself as a tree. Your boundaries are your bark. They protect you while still allowing you to grow, to reach toward the light. Your compassion is your leaves, extending outward, providing shade for others, but always connected to and nourished by your. As we move forward, I want you to start noticing the subtle ways you might be participating in your own manipulation. Do you apologize for having needs? Do you feel guilty for setting boundaries? Do you automatically assume responsibility for others' emotions? These are the hooks that manipulators attach their lines to. But here's the beautiful thing. Once you see these patterns, you can consciously choose different responses. You can learn to love without losing yourself. You can care deeply about others while still honoring your own truth. Because ultimately, that's what this journey is about. Learning to hold both love and boundaries in the same hand. Learning to care deeply about others while maintaining an unshakable commitment to our own well-being. Now let's explore something truly transformative. The practical steps of breaking free from emotional manipulation while maintaining relationships with those we love. Because this isn't just about identifying manipulation. It's about creating lasting change in our relationships. I want you to imagine your emotional strength like a muscle. Just like physical muscles, it grows stronger with consistent, mindful exercise. Each time you maintain a boundary, each time you respond with conscious choice rather than reactive habit, you're building that muscle. Let's talk about what I call the pause and process technique. When you feel that familiar twist in your gut, that pressure to comply with someone's emotional demands, pause. Take a deep breath. In that pause lies your power. It's the space between stimulus and response, and in that space lives your freedom to choose. During that pause, ask yourself 3 crucial questions. Is this request aligned with my values? Am I responding from love or from fear? What would maintaining my boundaries with compassion look like in this situation? These questions create clarity in moments of emotional fog. Manipulation thrives in the realm of immediacy. When someone demands an instant response, when they press for immediate compliance, they're often trying to bypass your natural wisdom, your inherent ability to discern what's right for you. That's why learning to sit with discomfort is so crucial. When someone you love is pushing your emotional buttons, when they're using guilt or shame or fear to influence your choices, you might feel an urgent need to fix things to make the discomfort go away. But growth lives in that discomfort. Let me share a powerful realization with you. Every time you stand firm in your truth while maintaining compassion, you're not just changing your own life. You're offering others a new model of relationship. You're demonstrating that it's possible to love deeply without losing yourself, to care profoundly without compromising your integrity. This is where many people get stuck. They think their only options are complete submission or total disconnection. But there's a beautiful middle path, one where we can stay connected while staying true to ourselves. It's like dancing. You can move in harmony with another person while still maintaining your own balance, your own center of gravity. Think about the way water interacts with rocks in a river. The water doesn't fight the rocks. It flows around them. It maintains its essential nature while acknowledging and adapting to the reality of what's in its path. This is the kind of flexibility we're cultivating Not the flexibility of weakness, but the flexibility of wisdom. When someone you love tries to manipulate you, remember this. Their behavior is often a reflection of their own unmet needs, their own unhealed wounds. This understanding helps us respond with compassion rather than reaction. Instead of getting caught in the drama of the moment, we can address the deeper needs at play. And this is crucial, understanding someone's pain doesn't mean accepting their manipulation. You can hold space for their struggles while still maintaining your boundaries. You can acknowledge their feelings without taking responsibility for them. There's a powerful practice I want you to try. Start noticing the difference between responsibility and responsibility. You're not responsible for other people's emotions, but you have the ability to respond with wisdom and compassion. This subtle shift in perspective changes everything. When someone says, "You're making me feel this way," you can calmly reply, "I hear that you're feeling hurt, and I care about that. At the same time, I need to make choices that honor my own well-being." This response acknowledges their feelings while maintaining your boundaries. Remember, manipulation often comes wrapped in the language of love and obligation. If you loved me, you would, after everything I've done for you. These phrases are designed to bypass your boundaries by activating your guilt and fear. But true love doesn't require the sacrifice of your self-respect. Let's talk about what I call the loving mirror technique. When you notice manipulative behavior, reflect it back with compassion. I care about you, and I notice that when I don't do what you want, you withdraw your affection. I want us to find a healthier way to communicate our needs to each other. This approach does something powerful. It brings unconscious patterns into conscious awareness. It opens the door for real dialogue, real change, because often the people who manipulate us aren't fully aware of their behavior. By naming it with compassion, we create an opportunity for growth. But here's the thing about growth. It's not always comfortable. When you start changing these patterns, you might face resistance. The people who are used to manipulating you might push back harder before they adjust to the new dynamic. This is normal. This is part of the process. Think of it like renovating a house. There's often a period where things look messier, where the process of improvement actually creates temporary chaos. But if you stay committed to the renovation, if you keep holding the vision of what you're creating, you eventually build something beautiful and strong. This is why having support during this process is so crucial. Whether it's a trusted friend, a counselor, or a support group, having people who understand your journey can make all the difference. They can help you stay steady when the winds of manipulation try to blow you off course. As we move forward, I want you to remember this. Your growth might trigger others' insecurities. When you start setting healthy boundaries, when you stop playing your old role in the manipulation dance, some people might feel threatened. This isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's often a sign that you're doing something right. Now let's delve into what I call the transformation zone, the space where real, lasting change happens in our relationships. This is where we move beyond just recognizing manipulation and start actively creating new patterns of interaction. Imagine you're learning a new language. At first, everything feels awkward and uncomfortable. You stumble over words, you make mistakes, you feel uncertain. But with practice, with persistence, this new way of communicating becomes natural. That's exactly what we're doing here. Learning a new emotional language. One of the most powerful tools in this new language is what I call compassionate authenticity. This means speaking your truth with both courage and kindness. It means being honest about your feelings and needs while remaining open to understanding the other. Let me share something profound with you. The strongest boundaries are often expressed with the gentlest words. When you're deeply grounded in your truth, you don't need to shout it. You can say no with love. You can maintain your position without creating enemies. Think about this. Every time you respond to manipulation with conscious choice, rather than automatic compliance. You're not just changing that moment, you're rewiring your emotional patterns, you're creating new neural pathways, new ways of being in relationship with others. They wait until they feel ready, until they feel strong enough to make these changes. But readiness is a myth. Strength comes through action, through taking small steps even when we're afraid, even when we're uncertain. Consider the metaphor of learning to swim. You don't learn to swim by standing at the edge of the pool, theorizing about swimming techniques. You learn by getting in the water, by experiencing the buoyancy, by moving your limbs in new ways. The same is true for emotional growth. When someone you love tries to manipulate you, treat it as an opportunity for practice. Each manipulative comment, each guilt trip, each emotional power play becomes a chance to respond differently, to choose a new path. It's like having a spiritual gym right in your own relationships. This is where the real work happens. In those everyday moments, when someone pushes your emotional buttons and you choose not to dance the old dance. When they say you never think about anyone but yourself, and instead of defending or attacking, you respond with calm clarity. I hear that you're frustrated, and I make choices that honor both of us. Let's be honest about something. I think that's salting. This journey isn't linear. There will be days when you handle manipulation with grace and wisdom, and days when you fall back into old patterns. This isn't failure. Every setback is actually a setup for a comeback if you choose to learn from it. Think about how a garden grows. Some days bring sunshine, others bring storms, but both are necessary for growth. Your journey of breaking free from manipulation is similar. The challenging days, the moments when you struggle, are just as valuable as the victories. Here's a powerful truth I want you to hold on. You don't have to justify your boundaries. You don't have to defend your right to have needs. You don't have to explain why you won't participate in your own manipulation. Your well-being is reason enough. When you really integrate this truth, something magical happens. The guilt trips lose their power. The emotional blackmail stops working because you're no longer buying into the fundamental premise of manipulation, that you're responsible for other people's emotions. Let's talk about what I call the energy alignment check. Throughout your day, especially in interactions with people who tend to manipulate, pause and ask yourself, is my energy aligned with my truth right now? Am I choosing this action, or am I being pressured into it? Does this decision feel clean and clear, or clouded with guilt and obligation? This simple practice helps you stay connected to your inner wisdom, your authentic self, because manipulation often works by disconnecting us from our own truth, by making us doubt our instincts and override our natural boundaries. When someone is used to controlling you through manipulation, your growth might feel like a threat to them. They might intensify their manipulative behaviors before they learn to relate to you in healthier ways. This is normal. This is part of the process. Think of it like this. When you're breaking a habit, the urge often gets stronger right before it breaks. The same is true in relationships. When you're changing old patterns, there's often a period of increased tension before the new, healthier dynamic takes hold. This is why self-compassion is so crucial during this journey, because you're not just changing your responses to manipulation, you're changing the fundamental way you show up in relationships. You're learning to love others without abandoning yourself, to care deeply without compromising your truth. As you get stronger in maintaining your boundaries, as you get clearer in expressing your truth, you actually become more capable of genuine intimacy, because real connection can only happen between two whole people who respect each other's boundaries. Think about that for a moment. Every time you stand firm in your truth while keeping your heart open, you're not just protecting yourself, you're creating space for authentic relationship. You're saying, I love you and I love myself. I care about you and I care about my own well-being. As we come to the final part of our journey together, I want to share something profound with you. The work we're doing here isn't just about breaking free from manipulation. It's about reclaiming your authentic self. It's about remembering who you are beneath all the layers of guilt, obligation, and fear that manipulation has created. Think about a diamond for a moment. When it's first discovered, it's rough, unpolished, often covered in layers of other minerals, but underneath all that, its essential nature, its brilliance, remains unchanged. The process of cutting and polishing doesn't create the diamond's beauty. It reveals it. That's exactly what we're doing here. Every time you choose conscious response over automatic reaction, every time you maintain a boundary with love, every time you refuse to participate in manipulation while keeping your heart open, you're polishing away the layers that have hidden your true nature. Let me share what I call the 3 pillars of emotional freedom. First, there's awareness. The ability to recognize manipulation when it appears, even in its subtlest forms. Second, there's choice, the power to pause and choose your response rather than reacting from conditioning. And third, there's love. The capacity to maintain compassion for yourself and others throughout this process. These pillars aren't just concepts. They're practical tools for transformation. When someone you love tries to manipulate you, awareness helps you see it clearly. Choice gives you the power to respond differently. And love keeps your heart open even as you stand firm in your truth. The journey isn't about becoming invulnerable. It's not about building walls so high that no one can reach you. It's about becoming so grounded in your truth that manipulation loses its power over you. It's about being so clear in your self-worth that guilt trips can't shake you. Think about a tree in a storm. Its branches may sway in the wind, but its roots keep it steady. That's what we're developing here. Deep roots of self-worth, self-respect, and self-love that keep us grounded when the winds of manipulation blow. Every time you maintain a boundary with love, you're not just changing your life. You're changing the lives of everyone around you. You're showing others what healthy relationships look like. You're demonstrating that it's possible to love deeply without losing yourself. As you get stronger in this practice, you'll find that the people in your life have 2 choices. They can either rise to meet you at this new level of authentic relationship, or they'll naturally fall away. Both outcomes serve your growth. This is where many people get stuck. They worry that by standing in their truth, they'll lose relationships. But here's the profound truth. Any relationship that requires you to betray yourself isn't really serving either person's highest good. Think about water again. When it's muddy, you don't have to fight the mud. You just have to be still. When you're still, the mud naturally settles, and the water's essential clarity reveals itself. The same is true in relationships. When you stop engaging in the drama of manipulation, when you stay steady in your truth, everything becomes. As we near the end of our time together, I want to share what I call the daily declaration of worth. It goes like this: I am worthy of respect. I am worthy of love that doesn't hurt. I am worthy of relationships that honor my boundaries. My needs matter, my feelings matter, my truth matters. Say this to yourself every morning. Let it sink into your bones. Because here's the thing about manipulation. It can only work if you doubt your worth. When you're absolutely clear about your value, manipulation loses its power over you. Think about this moment right now as a threshold. You're standing at the doorway between your old way of being in relationships and something new, something authentic, something powerful. Every step you take from here on out can be a step toward greater truth, greater self-respect, greater love. And remember this, the journey we've discussed isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real. It's about showing up in your relationships with authenticity, with courage, with compassion, both for yourself and for others. As you leave here today, carry this truth with you. You have the right to be yourself. You have the right to have boundaries. You have the right to say no. You have the right to love yourself as deeply as you love others. Every time you feel the pull of manipulation, every time you feel that familiar pressure to compromise your truth, remember this moment. Remember that you're not alone in this journey. Remember that thousands of others are walking this same path, learning to love without losing themselves, learning to care without compromising their truth. Your journey forward from this moment isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you've always been beneath the layers of manipulation and fear. It's about reclaiming your authentic self, your natural wisdom, your innate worth. That's my final invitation to you. Start now. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until the people in your life give you permission. Your journey toward emotional freedom begins the moment you decide it begins. The power to transform your relationships has always been within you. The clarity to see manipulation for what it is has always been available to you. The strength to maintain Boundaries with love has always been your birthright. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. You just need to remember who you are beneath all the layers that manipulation has created. And that remembering, it starts right here, right now with your next choice, your next interaction, your next moment of standing in your truth with love. Take this moment to feel the strength within you. Feel the wisdom that's always been there. Feel the love that's big enough to hold both boundaries and compassion, because that's who you really are. That's who you've always been. And as you step forward from this place, know this. Every time you choose truth over manipulation, every time you choose self-respect over guilt, every time you choose authentic love over fear, you're not just changing your life. You're changing the world, one relationship at a time. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. Thank you for having the courage to look at these patterns honestly. Thank you for being willing to grow, to change, to transform. The world needs more people who are willing to do this deep work of creating authentic relationship. Your freedom begins with your next choice. Make it a conscious one. Make it a loving one. Make it one that honors both yourself and others, because that's where true transformation happens. In those small moments of choosing truth over manipulation, authenticity over approval, love over fear. You are ready. You are worthy. You are strong enough. And your journey toward emotional freedom begins now.